So I'm here with Dr. David Kraft, and he is a psychotherapist, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some of the general basics of psychotherapy today.
What would you like to know?
So there's a lot of sort of misconceptions or maybe sort of assumptions that people make about psychotherapy and psychiatry. People who probably haven't been through any sort of therapy. I'm sure a lot of those come from films and maybe books and things in the media, and sort of a couch and hypnosis and all sorts of things. So can you clarify maybe some of those common misconceptions?
Well, traditionally in psychoanalysis, Freudian psychoanalysis particularly, the patient, because normally the psychotherapist will be a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, but not always. The patient or analysand will lie on the couch, and then the therapist or the analyst will encourage his client to go into free association. So to talk about whatever he or she wants to talk about, and at the same time moving from one topic to the next. And in this process, the therapist will make comments and analyse without leading the client. And also during this process, the analysand will discover insights into their conflicts and their past, a relationship particularly between their father and mother, and some of these conflicts that happen. And I think the reason why the analyst is out of sight is because if you're talking something really deeply personal, by getting eye contact, it might interfere with that process. Certainly, I also with some clients, I put the seats in parallel, so people they don't see my eye contact. And sometimes if you were to say something really personal, I might look away, so you're much more able to talk about something that's really difficult to talk about. So the couch is still used, certainly by Kleinian and Freudian analysts. But I tend not to use this because I feel that most of communication is through body language. And although I look away when people are talking about something really difficult, for the most part I have a normal balanced conversation with somebody. It's always going to be slightly strange because, unlike now, where I'm talking a lot, in the therapy session I will be doing much more listening and supporting. But of course I can support without saying anything. The holding, which is a technical term, the holding is supporting somebody, but I can do that with my body language. Being on time, being there every week is very important. And rapport. It's very difficult to show rapport if you can't see the person. So I now sit in the chairs rather like this, although the chairs are normally more comfy than these chairs, and they're at 45 degrees. And I smile, and rapport is the most important thing I feel in psychotherapy. And also I try to understand my clients' feelings and to feed back their feelings, so I'm really on board. So this is much more of a Rogerian approach to therapy. Carl Rogers was one of my heroes. Non-judgmental approach is what I tend to take on. Not that I don't ever do analysis, I do dream interpretation, which one would normally associate with Freudian psychotherapy. Jungian psychology, they all do a lot of dream interpretation. I do this too, but I'm much more of an independent psychotherapist, and I feel that's very helpful in psychotherapy, because if you have just one rigid set of rules, you can't adapt to you'll find.
So it seems like your approach to psychotherapy is one that draws from a lot of different types of practices, maybe starting with Freud and going up through the 20th century. Do you think maybe you could tell our viewers a little bit about the development of psychotherapy through the 20th century and sort of some of the revolutions that have happened and how you draw on that?
I think that everything started from Freud. He's out of vogue at the moment with many people, but he had a lot to say with regard to the unconscious. And whenever I start with a client, Freud is always there with the dream interpretation, with free association, conflicts. People are often unhappy when they've got a conflict or feelings of guilt. And Jung and Freud, of course, fell out, but they're also good friends. And they're both very different therapists. But I take on a lot of Jung's theories, personality types, for example, and the concept of the universal unconscious. But there are lots of developments. I can't go into all of this because it's a huge topic, but they're branched out into the Americas and the English school of psychotherapy. I think Maslow made a huge impact, and I'm also quite into transactional analysis, particularly the concept of the adult self, the parent self, and the child self. I find that's very helpful in therapy. I think Fritz Perls had a huge lot to give to psychotherapy. And although I'm not a Gestalt therapist, I use some of his approaches in hypnosis, for example, ego state therapy, the empty chair technique. So, for example, do you know about the empty chair technique?
I don't.
Well, it's all to do with conflicts. One part of you wants to do this, and one part of you wants to do that. And you have this internal dialogue within yourself. So I will move over here, and you have one part of yourself says what you want to achieve on that chair, and then you move chair to here, you see. And you can do that in hypnosis as well. In hypnosis, you can imagine having a conversation between your healthy self and your unhealthy self, with the smoker that wants to smoke but wants to give up, for example. So there are a huge number of psychotherapists. Carl Rogers as well, person-centered psychotherapy. He's been hugely influential. And more recently, the integrative psychotherapies. My father was one who incorporated hypnosis into psychotherapy. And my father was one of the first people that talked about the fact that behaviour therapy is not necessarily diametrically opposed to psychoanalysis. Marx in the 60s and 70s used behaviour therapy to help people with sick phobia of being sick, or phobia of animals, and he used flooding technique and so forth. And psychotherapy can be used in conjunction with behaviour therapy. How are we doing for time? We need to wrap it up.
All right. Well, thanks so much, David, for talking to me today. And I believe if you have any questions, you can go to his website or send him an email if you have any specific things you'd like to talk to him about. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.